What's up, Ice and Fire fans? Welcome back to the House of Vine podcast and Got Game Episode 3, the Episode 5 breakdown of Game of Thrones Season 6. First and foremost, sorry for my channel's hiatus the last couple weeks. In all honesty, the show hasn't had me all too motivated to make these review videos. But since we're at the halfway point, I figured I'd hop on and give everyone my 2 cents. So, enough with the intro chit chat, let's get started. First off, like every episode this season, we start off up at the Wall. We see Sansa receiving a letter from Littlefinger to meet him at Molestown. Again, we see Peter exhibiting video game-like fast-traveling abilities to get around the Seven Kingdoms. Sansa goes to talk with Peter, bringing along Lady Brienne. This nearly removes any chance of him talking his way out of this. Last season, we got a scene with Peter and Ramsay when he tried getting some insight into the newly made Lord's background. So, to answer Sansa's question, he is an idiot. Sansa wants Littlefinger to say out loud all the awful things she had to endure while with Ramsay. Apparently, the showrunners don't think our imaginations are enough. Now, I understand Sansa letting Littlefinger leave with his head still attached. The dude did help her escape King's Landing. However, she's letting her emotions get the best of her. Telling Littlefinger to get lost, as well as refusing any help from the Knights of the Vale, is very, very stupid. Not only does this not add thousands of men to her brother's army, but it also leaves Littlefinger at the helm of a giant army with no goal in mind. Peter could easily join Ramsay as a fuck you to Sansa for sending him away. Hopefully, he'll show up to be her brother's saving grace when the Battle of the Bastards comes to a head. Over in Braavos, Arya has clearly become a better fighter, though she's still getting her ass handed to her by the waif. Jaqen gives her the history about the first Faceless Men. We learn that the first No One was a slave of old Valyria. In Arya's A Feast for Crows chapters, as well as the World Book, we learn that it actually might have been the Faceless Men who brought along the doom of Valyria. Take a listen to this book passage.
A handful of maesters, influenced by fragments of the work of Sept and Bath, held that Valyria had used spells to tame the 14 Flames for thousands of years, that their ceaseless hunger for slaves and wealth was as much to sustain these spells as to expand their power, and that when at last those spells faltered, the cataclysm became inevitable. Some, wedding the fanciful notion of Valyrian magic to the reality of the ambitious great houses of Valyria, have argued that it was the constant whirl of conflict and deception amongst the great houses that might have led to the assassinations of too many of the reputed mages, who renewed and maintained the rituals that banked the fires of the 14 Flames.
It's implied that these assassinations were carried out by Faceless Men. Without the mages to sustain the Valyrian magic controlling the volcanoes eventually erupted, destroying the great empire. Jaqen gives Arya her next target. Hopefully, she won't screw this one up like she did with the Thin Man. Showrunners give us an adaptation of the Winds of Winter sample chapter, Mercy. It's an Arya chapter where we see her training with a group of mummers, which is the next part of her Faceless Man training. The play is a distorted telling of events in Westeros, which, don't forget, is a foreign land to the people in Braavos. It paints Ned Stark as the stupid northerner who betrayed his drunk king, with Tyrion masterminding it all. Arya actually never saw her father's death, so having her see the event depicted as a comedy brings up feelings of her wanting to be Arya Stark and not No One. It doesn't help that the woman playing Cersei in this play just so happens to be Arya's target. Back in Westeros to the Iron Islands, we get the show's version of the Kingsmoot. I know a lot of book fans were really excited to finally see this, but I had a feeling that the show Kingsmoot wasn't going to live up to the book. First of all, in the books, Theon is not present during the Kingsmoot, which in time might actually overrule Euron being chosen. Not only that, there's a bunch of key characters missing, specifically 2 more younger brothers of King Baelon, Victarion Greyjoy and Aeron Greyjoy. Victarion is a seasoned warrior who leads the Iron Fleet and puts his name forth before Yara gets a chance, and Aeron Greyjoy, who's supposed to be this drowned priest in the show, hates his brother Euron. The biggest thing missing from the show, Dragonbinder. In A Feast for Crows, Euron shows up to the Kingsmoot with a 6-foot Valyrian horn that supposedly binds dragons to his will. In the books, Euron is written as a huge player in the Game of Thrones, especially since he might be able to steal Dany's dragons. Showrunners have written him only as another kinslaying asshole. In Meereen, we meet the first servant of the Lord of Light, a Red Priestess by the name of Kinvara. Tyrion has brought her in to ask her help to spread the word that it was Daenerys who brought them peace and an end to the fighting. This Red Priestess calls Dany the one who was promised. Melisandre thought Stannis was the prince that was promised, and now she thinks that it's Jon. Both Melisandre and Kinvara think that they're right, and that's the problem, like Varys says, with fanaticism, that they're always right. Before we head to the show's big 2 reveals, let's head back to the Wall to Sansa and Jon discussing the other northern houses. Sansa explains to Sir Davos that northern houses are loyal to their own, that the Karstarks might still support her claim to Winterfell since the Boltons aren't the only game in town. She also reveals to the group the news that she received from Lord Baelish about the Blackfish retaking Riverrun. Later in the sequence, Brienne asks Sansa why she lied to her brother. "I don't know, Brienne. Why did you lie to Sansa about her sister and the Hound?" Jon reminds them that the Boltons, Umbers, and Karstarks aren't the only northern houses. There's also the Manderleys, the Glovers, the Hornwoods, and the Kerwins. In the books, Ramsay forced a marriage between him and Lady Donella of House Hornwood, a marriage that ended with her eating her own fingers after Ramsay locked her away in a tower, refusing to feed her. In the show, Ramsay flayed 2 members of House Kerwin, meaning that their house will most definitely support Jon and Sansa. We also have House Mormont. If we remember, the 10-year-old Lyanna Mormont sent a letter to Stannis claiming that Bear Island knows no king but the king in the north, whose name is Stark. The group has made a decision to rally these houses as well as the Tullys to the Stark banner. Jon leaves Ed with the Wall, telling him try not to knock it down. If this isn't foreshadowing that the Wall is coming down, I don't know what is. And now for the 2 big reveals. First, we learned that the others, the White Walkers, were created by the Children of the Forest, which kind of fits nicely with the whole genetically altered humans theory made famous by Preston Jacobs. Now, we see that the children used obsidian to create the first White Walker, but it's kind of strange that the same thing that was used to create them is also the only weapon that can kill them. So Brandon goes off warging without a guide, and he straight fucks up. The Night's King is able to see Bran and is able to mark him, allowing him and his minions access to the cave in which they've been hiding out. The Night's King shows up to the cave and we get 4 big deaths: the 3-eyed raven, the child Leaf, Summer, and Hodor. With the death of Summer, if Shaggy Dog is really dead, that means Jon is the last Stark child with a living direwolf. You could argue that Nymeria is still alive, Arya's direwolf, but I think Ghost is gonna be our last wolf in the show. Finally, let's talk about Willis, aka Hold the Door. So many people are confused about this reveal. I'm sure other YouTubers can do a better job explaining this, but the way I took it, while connected to the werewood net, Bran was able to warg into Willis, thereby warging present-day Hodor so he could use him to help Mira and Bran escape. It's definitely time travel at play here, but it seems more of the consciousness rather than the physical body. So, there we have it, folks. We're halfway through season 6. I probably won't do another episode until episode 8, because that's usually when shit goes down. So, I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thanks for watching. And as always, share, like, and subscribe to stay updated and be the first to watch newly uploaded videos.